Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A on this Sunday afternoon on the 26th. Appreciate everyone being here. I have a few questions. We'll let everyone kind of filter in as per usual. For those of you that are unaware of what the Q&A is, basically normally it's Saturdays at 1 p.m. We usually put on a Q&A for all of our students throughout all of our classes. And the whole purpose of it is to see what questions you may have had or issues that you may have run into. We're here to answer them for you, whether that's a technical issue, an aviation related issue, a cool story, whatever it is. And then in addition to that, we're going to go over the top missed FAA test questions that we've seen on our side as instructors. And that includes the private pilot side, the instrument side, and then on the drone side, we only had a couple people taking the drone SUAS course. So in this case, this week, I only have one question for you guys. But for those of you that are part of the ongoing private pilot course, welcome. This is a free, bonus, if you will, that we do every single week. The reason why we pushed it from Saturday to Sunday was I received about a dozen emails saying, hey, 1 o'clock on Saturday is really, really tough for me to make. Is there any way that we can maybe do it on Sunday afternoon after I go to church and everything else? So that's the reason why we're doing it. And I'll take a poll in the future to see what works best for you. So welcome everyone, Nate, Jerry, Cezanne, Nate, let's see, Varun. If you have any questions related to the materials that we've covered thus far, go ahead and let me know. And what we'll end up doing is we will also have an open forum at the very, very end of class. So I will stick around as long as necessary to answer any questions, whether it is you're not getting the emails, there's a technical question, I'm still unable to check the test scores, whatever that may be. I'm here to help and work with you one-on-one. And I'm still kind of powering through all the emails that you guys have sent. I want to say in the last 24 hours, I've probably sent out about 500 emails just responding to everybody's questions. But once again, they still keep populating. For every one that I send out, there seems to be 2 that show back up in my inbox. So just bear with me on that. Robert, if you can just kind of elaborate on what you mean by a lot of the materials are in the wrong program, if you could just let me know, that would be fantastic. Someone was also asking, what is a good passing score for the quizzes? The passing score for the quizzes is 70%. That would be the recommendation. Although if you got a 69%, it doesn't preclude you from going forward and taking the next set of tests or quizzes. Remember that you can take the quizzes as many times as you want, and I highly encourage that you to continue taking the quizzes because that will really, really help out your process. Okay. Yep. Clone me ×3. Well, I usually work, as you guys know, 16 to 18 hour days, and we have some exciting stuff that I want to share with you guys coming up. But with that, we'll let the rest of everybody else filter in. Sorry about the Saturday. That's one thing I did miss. It is actually Sunday today, the 26th. Once again, we'll talk about the course updates. I'll let you know if you guys are members of Facebook and follow us on the Facebook page. I did go ahead and update our Facebook calendar coming up for the end of 2020, so you can see the remaining courses that we have available. In addition to that, as mentioned, we'll talk about the top test questions that you missed as private pilots, instrument pilots, and SUAV pilots. Now, for the private pilot course, I'm only limiting it to the first 3 chapters. Normally, I do the entire course, meaning that I select questions from weight and balance, flight planning, and other things. But we have such a large population of students that just started the free private pilot course that I'm only going to do it for the material that we've covered thus far. All right. For those of you who are asking, where do I find the charts or the references for the quiz? That is in the FAA testing supplement. So once again, if you're a member of Facebook, I have put the FAA testing supplement on, let's see, I put it on inside the file section of the group. So all you would have to do is join the Checkride Prep group and then go to files, and it's in there as well. On every single lesson page, you guys would normally see a video, and then beneath the video, you'll have like the course content, and then you'll have all the downloads beneath that in terms of these are the recommended supplemental readings. And then right beneath that, you're going to have something that says classroom or class website links. Underneath class website links, it says private pilot testing supplement. Click on private pilot testing supplement, and it will give you the actual private pilot testing supplement that you reference the testing figures for whatever the question is asking. All right. That's located under every single lesson. And if you go to the Welcome Start Here page, there's a set of documents in there as well. It's located in there. If you still can't find it, literally just go to Google and type in FAA Private Pilot Testing Supplement, and it's a large PDF document, and it will populate, there going forward. In our paid private pilot course, we actually have all of the FAA testing figures right next to each one of the test questions. We don't have time to necessarily do that for the free private pilot course. So that's the reason why we're doing that. Okay. All right. So let's see here. All right. For those of you that still ask a million questions about what is the homework, and this only pertains to those folks that are doing the private pilot course on Monday with us, we are covering federal aviation regulations. If you want to take a snapshot of this with your camera instead of writing this stuff down, if you have Rod Machado Private Pilot Handbook, you're going to review Chapter 6 on federal aviation regulations. Now, what I mean by review is don't read it verbatim. It's going to take too much time. Just kind of glance over it, look at it page by page, get a decent understanding of what the content is. For those of you that don't have that textbook, these are the specific regulations that I would like you to review. And I am kind of hiding, unfortunately, we go ahead and move that. I'm kind of hiding some of those regulations. So these are different regulations in the federal aviation regulations. So we're going to be talking about part 1, which is our definitions, part 61, which is everything about pilot licensing, which does include your FAA medical, what are the requirements to become a private pilot, what are your rights and responsibilities as a student pilot, privileges and limitations, how many flight hours do you need? All of that stuff is basically encompassed in this part 61. And then we'll also review part 91. And these are all of our general operating rules. So, altitudes that we can fly, regulations in terms of who has the right of way when it comes to aircraft, regulations on seat belts, oxygen, everything under the sun is really kind of encompassed in part 91. Now, once again, just briefly breeze through it. I will upload the FAA Federal Aviation Regulations in the file section of the groups the Facebook group, that is, for you to review. I'll also take a snapshot of this slide and I'll post it on our Facebook page, so that way you guys and gals have a copy of it. But once again, you don't need to read it verbatim. Most of this stuff was written by lawyers, and it is pretty painful to read. And what we're going to do in class is I'm going to break it down into very simple terms, so that way we can kind of get through it, okay? For those that are still asking about the quizzes, okay, so a couple things that I mentioned in the private pilot class if you did not attend on Friday. We spent about $800 upgrading the server again, so over the weekend, we've actually had up to about 6,200 students logged into the server simultaneously taking quizzes. And good thing is it didn't crash, which is great. And we're really starting to see, that effort in those upgrades really pay off, because you should also be seeing the efficiency where we're not getting timed out, we're not getting logged off or anything like that. Because as frustrating as it is for you, it's also frustrating for me as an instructor, because if I'm trying to reset passwords and trying to help you out and look for specific things, and it times out on me, that's also kind of a no-go for us, okay? On the Facebook page, Eric is asking, where do we keep all these magical files? So if you go to Facebook and you type in Checkride Prep, then go down to groups, join the public group. It's called the Checkride Prep group. Inside the Checkride Prep group, there's a section on the left-hand side that says files, and that's where I keep uploading all of the files for this course, okay? In addition to that, you can also join our YouTube page, where I'm also uploading these videos as well. The YouTube is just, you can Google Checkride Prep under YouTube. I believe it's youtube.com/Checkride Prep. Or you can go to the dozens of emails that you guys have probably already received and just click on the little YouTube button, and it'll be there as well. but we do upload a lot of content to YouTube, and we try to place this stuff in a multitude of locations so nobody gets lost. Okay. All right. Yep. It's a lot of information to read. It's like reading a lawyer. Let me just take a look, make sure I am not missing any questions here. All right. So let's talk about some of these course updates. I went ahead this afternoon and updated the Facebook page. That's kind of our official location where we put all of the course information. Those of you that are already attending the private pilot ground school, fantastic. I'm so happy that you guys have been with us for the first week. And we've got 3 more wonderful weeks ahead of us. So we're looking forward to it. For those of you that are still interested, it's still a free course. You're more than welcome to join us. It's a total of 4 weeks, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. If you can't make the classes, we record all the live lessons, and then you can watch them at your own leisure or time at a later date. Upcoming classes that I do want to mention now that we've finalized the date for those that are interested in the commercial pilot ground school. The commercial pilot ground school is kind of like a supersized private pilot course. So what we do a little bit different is we get into a bit more of the regulations that pertain to commerce and transport. In addition to that, we get into a lot more systems, so constant speed prop, landing gear systems such as retractable gear systems, oxygen and pressurization systems, and a few other things. But other than that, a lot of it is actually duplicated when it comes down to airspace never changes. We still have to go through the standard Part 91 regulations. Weight and balance, we'll go to a slightly higher level of weight and balance, talking about MAC, which is mean aerodynamical chord. And in addition to that, we're going to get into centers of pressure and those types of things. So it's not that much different. It's just kind of a jumbo size version of the private pilot. So that's going to run from August 31st through September 14th. It's a total of 7 classes, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. For those of you that are interested in the instrument pilot ground school, we have scheduled that. Once again, it's another free class. September 21st through August 16th. It's 12 classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at 5 p.m., running to about 8:30 p.m. Pacific time, local time. And then once again, the Certified Flight Instructor Ground School, that will start in November and run through December concurrently. Before the end of the year, we're trying to wrap up the dates. And once I have those dates, I'll go ahead and publish them to you. All right. Let me just catch up with the comments here, see if you guys have any other questions. It is Mark saying it's a lot of material to read and understand in a very short time. You're absolutely correct, but keep in mind, Mark, if you were attending my live class, this is the same schedule that we do with the 12 to 20 students that sit in my live class. The only difference is that there's a little bit more interaction or personal interaction. But at the end of the day, when the class ends, they go home. We don't stick around for lesson 13, 14, and 15. It's their responsibility to basically keep up with the material, if you will. Okay, so let's see here. Jonathan Cook is asking, if we bought the program, do we need to take the quizzes in the free as well? No. The quizzes, if anybody purchased any of the lifetime memberships, which I'll talk about here in just a second, which are these guys right here, you have an unlimited amount of time to take the quizzes, and keep in mind that there is a free online private pilot ground school, and then there's the premium version of the same course. The premium version of the same course is basically that course that is subdivided out. So when you guys go on, you guys are usually seeing a 4-hour block of lesson all in one single video. For the premium version, it's basically been professionally recorded with audio and video. And what it is those are much, much smaller segments where they're somewhere between anywhere from 3 minutes to 15 minutes. They're directly to the point. And you might have a single lesson of aerodynamics that's now broken into subtopics. So one topic might be on ground effect. Another topic might be on lift, gravity, and so forth down the road. Weight turbulence, I believe, is another one. So it's a little bit more easy to digest. And in addition to that, for those that have that premium membership, and I'll throw it up there if you want it, those that have that premium membership basically have access to the entire program from lesson 1 to lesson 12 immediately, instead of the way that we do it in the free side is we basically give you each one of the lessons on the date that we're going to teach the course, we provide the course material, and we kind of try to do that so that way students can keep up, and we provide the calendars, and we try to get everybody on track. As I said, we have an 83% completion rate. I've signed over 2,500 certificates in the last 3 months for private and instrument courses, so this does work. For those of you that are interested in keeping the course longer, though, this is the public service announcement before we actually get into the cool content for today, is that we do offer the Aviator Private. And the Aviator Private is just a one-time payment of $97, or you can basically split it over 3 months at $33 a month. It gives you the lifetime access to the private pilot course. In addition to that, as you guys are getting closer to taking your practical, you will benefit from the private pilot oral prep course. So an oral is basically when you're going to sit down with an examiner and you're going to be asked specific scenario-based questions. Most orals take between 3 to 5 hours. I've had over 100 students that can get through an oral in just about a little over an hour because of the method that we use and what I teach them and prepare them for ahead of time. And it makes things that much easier, so that way you can get to the plane and just get done with the Checkride. Now, the other thing too is we'll give you the actual PDF book on how to become a pilot. That is this guy right here that I wrote. It's 150 pages on everything that you need to know and everything that I wish that I knew prior to myself becoming a pilot and an airline pilot. And these are kind of the things that I would always wanted to share with everybody, and you guys will get a copy of that as well. You'll get the 20% off the t-shirts. Everything for the lifetime will be always updated. So as the regulations change, because you own this course for life, you don't need to pay for any updates or anything like that. If something changes, we're going to redo the video. And every single week, every Tuesday and Thursday, we are in the studio, or I'm in the studio, re-recording the information, improving it, adding 3D animation and graphics, and just trying to make it a better course for you, the students. You get your 24/7 instructor support, and in addition to that, you get the written test endorsement for any of the courses and the FAA Wings credits. There's no time limit on any of that. In terms of the very first 100 students will receive a 1-hour one-on-one lesson with myself. That is a ground lesson with Zoom. Right now, we're down to 16 remaining. So we've got 16 spots remaining for the one-on-one hour lesson, and we can cover anything that you want to talk about. So whether that is career related, if you want to talk about the airlines, if you're getting stuck on aerodynamics, if you have a question about your Checkride coming up, if you want to do oral prep or Checkride prep, we can use that time accordingly, however you want to do it. The other thing that we do have for another $30, which is more, is the exact same criteria in terms of the private pilot course, except now we are giving you lifetime access to the instrument ground school, the small UAV ground school, which is if you intend on flying a drone commercially, that is a course that basically provides you all the information to pass that. We also provide you a 37 lesson pre-recorded lesson on how to use ForeFlight, which is kind of the major development in terms of the electronic flight bag out there. We showed that in class. And then everything else remains the same. The next 16 students do get the 1-hour one-on-one ground, and then that's scheduled through Zoom. And that is a two-way conversation between you and me, and we create a plan of action for whatever your personal needs are. That's my goal, is to get as many people into aviation and as excited as possible about this career, and just in general, the whole, aviation is such a tight-knit community that we all kind of know each other at the end of the day. Only difference with this is you do get everything, and you're also going to get the commercial ground school, which is coming out in August. It's $30 more, or you can break it into 3 payments if you want. Completely up to you. Once again, this is not necessary, but that's what I just wanted to throw my public service announcement out there. And then, like I said, I will answer any questions that you may or may not have. For those of you that did purchase this over the last week, I'm just waiting for the last 16 people. Once I get the total 100 people, I'm going to send out a giant email to everybody that will tell you exactly how to basically book your one-on-one lesson with myself. It'll walk you through our scheduling system on how to do that, where you can self-schedule, and in the event you needed to cancel at the last minute, you can do so. You'll get information on the t-shirts and the coupon code for the t-shirts and how to order all that stuff. So once again, and then Brendan is asking if I signed up for an old monthly subscription. If you signed up for an old monthly subscription, you'd have to cancel it and then just buy one of the other ones. Okay, it doesn't actually roll over. It's completely different. All right. The professional videos with the Aviator Private or the Aviator Ultimate, they're actually professional videos on both. So really the only unprofessional videos are these live videos that we do for the free courses. And the reason why that we can't do them professionally is that we're doing it in real time, and then we're just trying to upload it to the mass, to everybody as soon as possible. So it's too difficult for us to kind of break down those lessons as we would like to intend on doing. Okay. I'll be happy to answer any one of those questions that you want. And Luis is asking, can you purchase the PDF? Yes, you can. We actually have the book version of this, an actual hardcover book that's coming out in the next week and a half. And we are giving it away for free. We're just asking that people pay for the shipping, which is $7.95. It basically covers our cost to print the book and then our cost to ship the book. We really don't make anything on it. And then we send it out to you, and then we'll send that. If you're interested in that, you can send me an email. Okay. All right. So let's see here. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. Let's go ahead and start off with our private pilot test questions. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of myself on the screen so that way we can focus in on the actual test questions. I will also go through the questions that you are asking in the chat as we go through. If it's something that's not related, try to, you can throw it in the chat and we'll look at it at the very end as well. We've got the lovely Missy with us as well, our wonderful moderator. So she is typing away furiously, answering all of your questions. So the way that this works, as per usual, is that we are going to go through the top missed private pilot test questions that I have pulled from the actual recent test over the last week. It's only going to cover the information that I saw or that we covered. So with that, please, please, please answer in the polls, not in the chat. So very, very first test question that people seem to get wrong, and we'll go through each one of these, is dealing with a stall. During a spin to the left, which wing or wings is or are stalled? Is it A, both wings are stalled, B, neither wing is stalled, or C, only the left wing is stalled? Missy, if you're leaving at 35 after, good luck, my dear. And Tom, Tom is going to be one of our new moderators. Tom, I'm going to shoot you an email with your information. I appreciate your patience, and we'll get you going for Monday, Tom. All right, so we've got a majority of the class answering right now. Got a couple stragglers here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the question right here. We've got 94% of the class with both wings are stalled, and we've got 5% of the class with only the left wing is stalled. So remember, regardless of what's happening, a spin to the left, both wings are actually stalled. It's just that one wing is actually stalled more than another wing in this case. So keep in mind, the reason why C is incorrect is because both wings are stalled, but the right wing is less fully stalled than the left wing. So the correct answer here is A. All right, great job, everyone. All right, so let's look at another test question that everyone seems to be missing. Let me go and bring this one up here, and this is dealing with the internal cooling. So for internal cooling, reciprocating aircraft engines are especially dependent on what? Is it A, properly functioning thermostat, B, air flowing over the exhaust manifold, or C, the circulation of lubricating oil? Give everyone another moment on that. All right. Great job again. So we've got 80% of the class with the correct answer, which is C. It's the circulation of lubricating oil. We had 16% of the class with B, which is air flowing over the exhaust manifold. So keep in mind, air flowing over the exhaust manifold is incorrect just because air cooling is important for the engines, but that's not really the primary purpose. It's the internal cooling of the engine is done through the circulation of lubricating oil. Remember that when we talked about it in the slides, and I'll show you the slide here that we looked at last week, was that I said the big thing to remember is this one right here, okay? Number 2, oil helps regulate temperature by carrying away heat from the engine to keep the engine temps within limits. The other one that is important, but not as important, is that oil creates a thin film that clings to the metal surfaces, allowing them to slide over each other with minimal contact, and that's what we call lubrication. Okay, so good job, everyone. All right, so any questions with that so far? Click on that arrow on that right arrow. Where's the right arrow? Thanks. All right, anyways, let's go ahead and move on here. This is going to refer to our altimeter system. Okay, so with our altimeter system, this is one that folks seem to have gotten wrong quite a bit as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring up the 3 altimeters. This is directly from the FAA test figures. And the question goes is, which of these altimeters indicates more than 10,000 feet? Is it 1, 2, and 3? Is it 1 and 2? Or is it only 1? Which one is it? For those of you that are looking for, let's see here, how to review your student profile and test, I will throw that in again. We've talked about that a few times. I think I've sent out an email on that. So let's see here. I'm going to put it in the sticky message. For those that need to review their test questions, I put it in the sticky message at the very top of the screen there. And these test questions are live. Yep, these are the current ones that we are talking about right this second. Yep. All right, so we've got the class a little bit split here, where we've got about 73% of the class with 1 and 2. We've got 7% with 1, and the rest of the class 19% with 1, 2, and 3. Now remember, what it comes down to is it is the actual smallest hand, or the 10,000th hand. So what we always have to look at is, where is this 10,000th hand pointing? So if I were to kind of extend a line on each one of these, let's start off with number 1. So number 1, we've got the fat hand, which is basically between the 0 and the 1. And we have, in this case, we've got the 10,000th hand pretty much over the 1, which would be 10,000. So what we have here for number 1 is going to be 10,500 MSL. Okay, so number 1 will apply. Now in number 2, we've got the 10,000th hand, which is between the 10 and the 2. And we've got the fat hand here, which is between the 4 and the 5. And then we've got our hundredths hand at the 500. So in this case, what we have is going to be at least 10,000. But we also have 4,500. So it's 14,500 MSL for number 2. Okay. And number 3, This one is the one that's a little bit tricky. So when we look at it, we can see that the 10,000th hand is pretty close to the 1, if not on the 1. But the 100th hand is just around the 9, and we know we've got 9,500. Now, is it 19,500 or is it 9,500? Now, keep in mind, if it was 19,500, this hand right here would not be this close to the 1, which is representing 10,000. It would actually be closer to the 2 if it was 19,500, but it isn't. So in this case, that answer here is going to be 9,500 MSL. So our correct answer is B, which is 1 and 2 only. Okay, does everyone have any questions about that? Too much wine tonight with mussels. Sounds like a fantastic dinner, though. If you do not see the poll is right next to the chat. When the poll becomes available, there's a little red dot in there. I'm sure there's a few people on here that could help answer that. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and look at another FAA test question that people seem to be missing, and this is dealing with wake turbulence. So let me go ahead and refresh the screen here and bring this question up. And when landing behind a large aircraft, the pilot should avoid wake turbulence by staying, is it A, above the large aircraft's final approach path and landing beyond the large aircraft's touchdown point, B, below the large aircraft's final approach path and landing before the large aircraft's touchdown point, or is it C, above the large aircraft's final approach path and landing before the large aircraft's touchdown point? I'll give everyone a moment on that. Stan is asking, let's see here. Oh, we already got that question. All right, there are 10 more spots in the 1 hour one-on-one with myself. I've left in the sticky message the direct link to the special offer, which allows you to either choose the monthly or the one-time. All right, people are still chiming in with their answer. Give you guys another second or so. Can you clarify what you mean, Russ, by the link? Receive the link on 725, please, so that way I know what you're talking about. All right, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the poll right there. We've got the majority of the class once again with the correct answer. Correct answer here is A. We've got 81% of the class with A. So above the large aircraft's final approach path and landing beyond the large aircraft's touchdown point. So let's go ahead and visualize that real quick here. If you guys remember this slide, if we have an aircraft, and we're going to primarily pay attention to the bottom of the slide here, what I want to do if I am following a large aircraft and they are landing is I want to touch down after the point that they landed. So what I would do is I would purposely land further than where they actually touched down, because as you can see, we have that wake turbulence which is generated. And remember, it's really kind of a byproduct of lift. When lift is created, wake turbulence is created. So as soon as the wheels are on the ground, that wake turbulence dissipates. Now, when we're taking off and we've got a large jet in this case that we're following, we want to rotate and try to stay above if at all possible. So we want to rotate prior to when they rotated in order to avoid that wake as well. Now, most of the time, the reality is that when we're in small general aviation aircraft, we would probably be able to rotate, and then at some point we would end up in the wake if we weren't able to turn away. One thing that you can do, especially at busier airports like John Wayne International Airport, where this is a fairly common occurrence, is you can ask air traffic control for an early turnout meaning that, you know, instead of waiting till 500 feet, you can maybe turn out at 200 or 300 feet. So that way you can avoid that wake turbulence, because the jet is going to outclimb you no matter what. And at some point, you will cross into that wake turbulence. But for the purposes of this test, remember that we want to take off or rotate before that large aircraft rotated. And on landing, we want to touch down after the point that that large jet touched down. Okay. Nick, if you buy a seaplane, you can absolutely dock it at an intercoastal restaurant. There's actually a bunch of cool ones. When I was working for Compass, when we went up for American Airlines into Vancouver, British Columbia quite a bit, all the pilots would go to the Flying Beaver. And the Flying Beaver was a seaplane base, and a lot of pilots would fly in, and we would actually walk from the hotel. We actually had a lot of fun, but you can absolutely do that. Okay. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and look at the next FAA test question, which is relating to the airspace. And I did see a question about airspace earlier in terms of how do you differentiate echo and gulf. So we'll talk about that here. Let me go ahead and bring up the test question. So we're going to refer to the figure, and I'm going to bring up the figure first. So it says, refer to figure 22, area 1, the visibility and cloud clearance requirements to operate VFR during daylight hours over Sandpoint Airport at 1,200 feet AGL are what? To help people out, Sandpoint Airport is this airport right here. Okay. Remember that the keywords here are we've got over the airport at 1,200 feet AGL and at daylight hours. Those would be the big keywords that I would want to point out to everyone. Okay. John's asking, can you wait a little longer before taking off to allow longer distances between you and the large aircraft to avoid the wake? Absolutely. The other thing too, John, is that if you are uncomfortable as pilot in command and they tell you, you're cleared for takeoff, tell them unable. You can, the way that it used to work was it used to be based on a timing, and ATC had to provide X amount of minutes or seconds between certain different categories or types of aircraft. And now they've actually changed that rule to make it a specific nautical mile distance. But I can tell you, when we fly into LAX, even though we're 3 or 4 miles behind a heavy, that heavy is doing some pretty serious wake turbulence damage to our aircraft as we follow it. And I can assure you the passengers in the back are usually not that comfortable or happy with the situation. So if you want additional spacing, you can either deny a clearance or ask to wait a little bit longer. All right, going back to the question here, VFR daylight hours over Sandpoint Airport at 1,200 feet AGL. All right, so what we have here is a little bit of a split, but the majority of the class got it right. We have 62% of the class with the correct answer, which is C. It's 3 statute miles of visibility, 1,000 above, 500 below, and 2,000 feet horizontally, excuse me. Now, the reason, let's go ahead and talk about this, because this is something that we just covered the other day, and people do get confused. So number one thing that I do want to point out here is that we do have this magenta shade which surrounds that airport. So what I mean by that is this magenta shade right here. As we can see, it's basically a circular pattern that surrounds the entire airport. So what that means is that if I'm at Sandpoint Airport, what we have, and I'm going to draw the different airspace layers for you so that way you can kind of visualize it a little bit better, is assuming that the bottom layer is the surface, which would be the airport. So from the surface to 700 feet, AGL is going to be class Golf, okay? Then above that, we have basically anything above 701 feet, AGL, plus or up to 17,999 MSL, that is going to be class Echo, okay? So, and then everything above that, remember, anything above 18,000 feet is all class Alpha airspace, right? So the reason why I said you have to be careful when we're looking at this question is it clearly states, it's saying that we are, what is the requirements at 1,200 feet? So we fall within this little category here, which is inside of class Echo. Now remember, inside of class Echo, what we have to remember is that it's 3,152, which is that mnemonic that we use. So remember, it's 3 statute miles of visibility, 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. Now, in the event that the question was slightly changed and it said you're standing at the surface, well, the question would be, what would be the weather requirements? Well, the weather requirements at the surface are slightly different. The weather requirements at the surface, if it's during the day for class Golf, remember, class Golf during the day is going to be 1 statute mile clear of clouds, right? And that's for the day. At night, and that's the reason why I said make sure that you understand if it's asking for day or night. At night for class Golf, remember that it will be 1 statute mile, and then it will be 152, which is 1,000 above, 500 below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. I'm sorry, it'll be 3,152. Sorry about that. It goes back, it just reverts back to 3,152. Okay. Any questions about that? Why is there a blue? Nick is asking, why is there a blue outside of class Echo airspace indicating class Delta? So I don't actually see that here, but keep in mind that sometimes we do have airspaces that kind of sit on top of one another. What I mean by that is that this box in the lower left-hand corner here, right here, represents or is telling the pilot that class Echo airspace starts at 700 feet. But if you look a little bit further, right by the Coeur d'Alene Airport, it actually is a magenta dash line, and the magenta dash line is saying if I'm standing at this airport in Coeur d'Alene, then I'm actually at class Echo, and class Echo starts at the surface instead of 700 feet, okay? Once again, this stuff all just takes a little bit of practice to kind of go through, and it's just a little bit of a step-by-step. All right, let's go on to the next question, which is dealing with aerodynamics. So the term angle of attack is defined as the angle between A, the chord line of the airfoil and the direction of the relative wind, B, the airplane's longitudinal axis and that of the air striking the airfoil, or C, airplane center line and the relative wind. Give everyone a moment on that. Jack is asking, is there a way to print the quiz so that when you're logged off, you can save it and study it? I believe what you can do, Jack, is when you look at the quiz results, just go ahead and, I use Google Chrome quite a bit, but if you're in Google Chrome, go ahead and hit Control P for print. And instead of actually printing it, you can either print it to a piece of paper or you can save it as a PDF, and then that way it'll allow you to look at all of your test questions in the future. Okay. All right, getting back to the test question here. Everybody seems to have the correct answer. It is A. The angle of attack is the angle between the chord line of the airfoil and the direction of the relative wind. Great job, everyone. So once again, if we were to look at the parts of a wing, we always have what is known as the leading edge, which is the very, very front part of the wing, and the trailing edge. If we were to draw an imaginary line that cuts through perfectly between the leading edge and the trailing edge, and what ends up happening is we compare that to where the wind is hitting the actual leading edge, which is known as the relative wind, then this angle, which is right here, is known as the angle of attack. Anytime that we exceed the angle of attack, or once we reach what is known as the critical angle of attack, which is generally going to be between 18 to 22 degrees, the wing will stall. And the reason why it stalls is that, remember, the wing likes to have what is known as this smooth laminar airflow, meaning that the airflow is really attached to the wing, or the upper portion of the wing and the lower portion of the wing. What ends up happening is as we start to approach that critical angle of attack, instead of that air kind of following that wing, or what we call smooth laminar airflow, it's going to start to separate. And as it starts to separate, we kind of get these little tiny burbles back here. And with that separation, we lose lift. And when we lose lift, we can't sustain flight, and that's what causes the stall. All right, so great job, everyone. All right, one more FAA test question here before we switch gears to the instrument. And if you guys are private pilots, stick around for the instrument. It might be interesting for you guys to learn as well, okay? All right, so this is going to deal with our engine cylinder head temperatures, which would most likely cause the cylinder head temperature and engine oil temperature gauges to exceed their normal operating ranges. Is it A, using fuel that has a lower than specified fuel rating, B, using fuel that has a higher than specified fuel rating, or C, operating with higher than normal oil pressure? Erica is asking in the previous question, when would it be 1,200 feet instead of 700 feet? I'll go back to the slide for you, and I'll just show you just briefly on what the difference is. As mentioned, happy to answer any questions that you may have as well. All right, everybody. So we've got about 66% of the class with the correct answer, which is A. It's using fuel that has a lower than specified fuel rating. 12% with B, 21% with C. Now, remember, when we talked about different types of fuel, there are a few different types of fuel out there. We've got 100 low lead, 100 leaded. We've got jet fuel, and then we've got, I think it's 8087. Remember that the one thing that you want to always make sure of is you want to use at least the grade of fuel that the manufacturer requires, or a higher grade of fuel. You never, ever want to use anything less than. It's kind of like some of these imported expensive cars. They tell you to fill up your car with 93 octane. So you want to use 93 or higher. You don't want to start going down to 90 or 87 because it's going to damage the engine somehow. Okay, so great job, everyone. I'm going to go back just a couple slides to kind of go over Erica's question, because I'm sure other people have it as well. Now, Erica was asking, how do we know where Class Echo starts or stops in terms of if it starts at 700 feet or if it starts at 1,200 feet? Okay, so that's pretty simple. This magenta shade that we have here indicates that everything inside of that magenta shade means that class echo starts at 700 feet AGL. Okay, if I was standing right here on this ridge line at 6,149 feet, there is no magenta shade. There's no dashes around it or anything like that. So what that means is that class Golf will go from the surface to 1,200 feet AGL, and then everything above that is going to be class Echo. Now, I'll give you another example. If I'm standing at Coeur d'Alene Airport down in the lower left-hand corner of the screen here, Coeur d'Alene Airport has a magenta dashed line that surrounds the entire airport. So the airspace at Coeur d'Alene Airport from surface up to but not including 18,000 feet is class Echo. If I stand by the Twin Lakes town or the town of Twin Lakes right here, you'll notice that I'm outside of the magenta dash line, but I'm still inside of the magenta shade. So if I'm standing at Twin Lakes and I was just looking straight up, the airspace would be from surface to 700 feet AGL would be class Golf, and then everything above 700 feet AGL up to but not including 18,000 feet would be class Echo. Once again, if I went to this private airport right here, which is Treeport, and I look straight up, from surface to 1,200 feet would be class Golf, and then everything above 1,200 feet all the way up to but not including 18,000 feet would be class Echo. Now keep in mind that the reason why we say up to but not including 18,000 feet is class Alpha starts at 18,000 feet, and we cannot have any type of airspace that, we can't have shared airspace, if you will. Neil was asking, are there any places in the U.S. where class Golf is from surface to 18,000? Nope. The highest that class Golf goes up to is 14,500. So class Golf has the potential to go up to 14,500 MSL. And as we mentioned in class the other day, there's very few places in the United States that does occur. We would know if that occurs because it has a blue shaded, a light blue shaded line around it. But once again, I think there's only a dozen or so left places where class Golf goes up to 14.5. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get back on track here. We talked about the cylinder head temperatures. So that takes care of the private pilot questions. I just have a few instrument questions. Some of them will actually pertain to private pilots as well. So feel free to stick around. They're not that complicated. I tried to blend them on this one. So first instrument related question that I'm seeing a lot of people miss is in regards to a microburst, okay? So remember, a microburst is a severe downdraft upwards of 6,000 feet per minute. Commercial airliners, let alone a general aviation aircraft, is not going to be able to outclimb that or outperform that. So question is, an aircraft that encounters a headwind of 45 knots within a microburst may experience a total shear across the microburst of what? Is it A, 40 knots, B, 80 knots, or C, 90 knots? The way that we like to think about these is it has kind of looks something like this. Not a very pretty drawing. But the airplane is going to start off right here, and it's going to start flying into the microburst. And then we've got about 7 more minutes, and then I'll open it up to questions, and I'll stay for as long as you guys and gals need to answer any questions that you may have, okay? So A, in terms of 40 knots, doesn't really seem correct, right? Because 45 knots, we've already said it's at least 45 knots. So we can basically knock off the first answer. Now, it's a little bit of a trick question, but what ends up happening is when we talk about shear or wind shear, for those that don't know, wind shear is a sudden change of direction and or velocity, and it could occur horizontally or it could occur vertically. And in this case, when we're dealing with a microburst, if you're to think about it, is basically this giant cloud or this structure, and each one of these lines is representative of that burst that comes down. We can't physically see it. Sometimes we can see it if it comes out as virga, which is virga is just a form of rain that comes down from a cloud, but it doesn't hit the earth. That's one good sign that we might be dealing with a microburst. But what ends up happening is that it says an aircraft that encounters a headwind of 45 knots. So what will end up happening is when the airplane starts to fly into it, we've got the microburst, which is basically showing an increase of 45 knots this way. Well, that is going to be the actual increase, and it's kind of an artificial increase in our indicated speed. Now, when the airplane moves towards the backside, you're going to notice that now the airplane is actually getting pushed away, and it reverses itself, meaning that instead of having the headwind, now we're going to have a tailwind of an additional 45 knots. So all we're going to do is add the two together, and 45 plus 45 knots is going to result in a total shift of 90 knots. So the correct answer here is C, 90 knots. All right, good job, everyone. All right, for our instrument pilot folks out there flying through icing conditions, hopefully we're not trying to do this on purpose. Most airplanes are not certified to fly into known icing, but what is the general recommended practice for autopilot usage during cruise flight in icing conditions? Is it to A, keeping the autopilot engaged while monitoring the system, B, periodically disengaging the autopilot while hand flying the aircraft, or C, periodically disengaging and immediately re-engaging the altitude hold function? Kind of silly question there. You're welcome, Afro. We'll look at that, William. So William, you're asking that the dual spark plugs were for heat distribution. It's not. Heat distribution is the form of increased performance or better performance. If we were to go back to that slide, I think I use both because dual spark plugs provide better burning or better performance in the burn, which means that it allows for a more uniform distribution of the power and the heat. Okay. You're welcome, J-Vent. All right, class seems to be very split on this, and I'm assuming it's because we've got some private pilots here. Now remember, for the private pilots in the house, you should not be flying in icing conditions, and in order to really get into some of these severe icing conditions, you obviously need freezing temperature and some type of visible moisture. That could be a cloud, that could be fog, that could be freezing rain, snow, sleet, anything along those lines that could stick to your airframe. And any type of icing, it usually occurs very, very rapidly. It's very dangerous, and almost all of the general aviation aircraft out there are not certified to go into known icing conditions. All right. All right, so we've got the class kind of split here between A and B. Half the class, or 40% of the class, is saying keep the autopilot engaged while monitoring the system, and the other half of the class, 43%, is saying periodically disengage the autopilot and hand fly the airplane. And then the other remainder, 15%, is saying periodically disengage and then immediately re-engage. The correct answer here is actually B. And the reason why we want to hand fly the airplane occasionally is that what will end up happening for those that are unfamiliar with how an autopilot works is the autopilot will do the best job it can to do whatever you told it to do. If you told it to fly a heading of north and you told it to maintain 130 knots and to maintain 10,000 feet, the autopilot is going to do whatever it can when it comes to being able to please the pilot in command, if you will. So what ends up happening when we get ice creates a significant amount of weight and a lot of drag on the airplane. So when we're flying straight and level with no ice, we would generally be in this type of configuration with our nose pointed this way, okay? As we start to pick up ice, we're going to start to notice that our angle of attack is going to increase in order to maintain the same altitude to the point where it's going to keep going up and up and up. And you can see that this is relatively level. Now we're maybe 5 degrees up. Now we're getting into 10 degrees up to the point where we're actually going to exceed the critical angle of attack and stall the airplane. And when it stalls, the autopilot does not know better. It's just going to happen. And at that point, it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late because you, as pilot in command, you don't really have a way to get rid of the ice quickly, right? Unless you're flying a sophisticated jet, you're not going to be able to get rid of that ice and get out of that icing condition, which is the most important thing. The reason why B is the appropriate answer here is that by disengaging the autopilot and hand flying the airplane, if I start to hand fly the airplane and I notice that, hey, I need to pull back on the yoke, it's taking me some force to do that, that's going to give me a very clear indication that something's wrong. That's going to give me that indication that maybe we've got ice building up, I need to get out of this situation. Because eventually when the autopilot can't do what you're telling it to do, it disengages. And when it disengages, it's probably going to do so at this point where it's just going to stall. Okay. So correct answer here is B. All right. Well, this question, sorry, and for those that are just coming in, this question is on the instrument. We just finished the private pilot. I've got a few instrument questions for our instrument students out there. Okay. All right, let's look at another FAA test question that revolves around turbulence. So, a pilot reporting turbulence that momentarily causes slight erratic changes in altitude and or attitude should report it as what? Is it A, light turbulence, B, moderate turbulence, or C, light chop? Yep, for those of you that are private pilots in the free private pilot online ground school, we covered the first 7 or 8 questions for private pilots. I only have another 3 questions here for the instrument, and then I'll open it up to everybody. So sit tight just for a moment, or try your best to see if you can answer these questions. Swathway, you are not blocked, sir. John, if you ended up in a icing situation, what I would do is you want to advise ATC, and if necessary, declare an emergency. You need to, you have a couple different options. Obviously, if you're an instrument rated pilot, you could potentially climb out of the icing conditions if you knew where the cloud tops were. You could descend if you're able to lower or warmer, temperatures, which would hopefully melt off the ice. Or you could potentially just try to divert to a different location where icing is hopefully not a problem. All right, we got pretty much everybody equally split here, so keep in mind, when we talk about turbulence, there are a few different types of, there's 4 different types of turbulence, and the descriptions are all going to be based on very subjective means. So if you hear, a Cessna 152 had severe turbulence going through the mountains, I kind of take that with a grain of salt because the person flying probably doesn't like turbulence, okay? I will tell everybody here that has not been in turbulence or is just starting out flying, turbulence is nothing to be afraid of. turbulence is nothing more than a nuisance, and when it comes down to turbulence, it's not going to break the airplane. It's just annoying, okay? So let's talk about the different types of turbulence. The different types of turbulence that we have are light, moderate, severe, and extreme. Severe is going to be a loss of control of the aircraft, even if it's momentarily. Extreme turbulence, which rarely happens. The only time that it happened that I'm aware of was a Delta flight that was on its way up to Seattle. It experienced an overspeed, and then it stalled, and then it had a TCAS, meaning that it had a collision warning all at the same time, and they experienced extreme turbulence. And extreme turbulence is defined as a structural failure of the airplane, meaning something did actually break, but that's very unlikely. I remember that because that plane was parked in Reno, and I was one of the pilots that had to go out and sit there with the mechanics for 4 or 5 days while they fixed it, and ferry that aircraft from Reno to Ember Air's facility in Nashville. And that plane was just a complete mess overall, okay? Now, when we talk about the differences between turbulence and chop, think of chop as rhythmic. Chop is very rhythmic, right? It's just it's kind of a consistency, if you will. So the correct answer here is A, it's light turbulence. Light turbulence is a momentary cause of slight erratic changes in attitude and or altitude. Remember that chop, anytime that we use the word chop means that it's rhythmic. So they're rhythmic bumps. It's kind of like it's kind of a continuous same rhythm. Okay, so that's the differences between turbulence. Any questions with that? Yep. Always make sure you wear your seatbelts and everything else. All right, this is a good question for both private pilots and instrument pilots, because it is actually on both tests. What is the maximum forecast period for an airmet? So remember, an airmet, there's 3 different types of airmets. The 3 different types of airmets are an airmet Zulu for icing. We've got an airmet Sierra for mountain obscuration, which is basically a large area where weather is less than VFR. And then the last one that we have is an airmet Tango, which is for turbulence. And an airmet Tango is issued anytime that we have surface winds greater than 30 knots, wind shear, or what we call low level wind shear, which is wind shear that occurs at 1,000 feet AGL or less. Or moderate turbulence. Those would be the 3 criteria that an airmet Tango is created. So let me go ahead and publish it. Sorry, I'm doing all this talking here. All right, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Apologize. Once again, everybody's evenly split. Keep in mind, the trick here is that it wants to know what is the maximum forecast period. It's not saying what is the typical forecast period. What is the maximum forecast period? All right, seems like everybody's going to need a little bit of help with this. We've got 33%, a third of the class with every single answer. So the correct answer here is actually 6 hours. The maximum forecast period for an airmet is 6 hours. If it goes over 6 hours, then what will end up happening is the airmet must be updated and then reissued, okay? This is just something that one of these that you're just going to have to kind of memorize as the test question. Once again, nobody in their right mind as a DPE or examiner is going to sit there and say, well, what is the maximum forecast period for an AirMet? The only time you get, directly asked that question on an exam is if you're sitting for a flight instructor exam where you need to know that. But these are mainly just test-related questions. All right, I've got 2 more, and then we're going to open it up to questions for everybody else. This is dealing with compass turns. For those of you on our private pilot class, we actually just talked about this stuff the other day. This is what we would call a scenario-based question, okay? So we talked about ANDs and ANDs, which is accelerate north, decelerate south. We talked about UNOS, which is overshoot north and undershoot south. So this would be a scenario. On what headings will the magnetic compass read most accurately during a level 360-degree turn with a bank of approximately 15 degrees? Is it A, it's going to be most accurate between 135 and 225, B, it's going to be most accurate between 90 and 270, or C, 180 and north or 0? Afra is asking, what is moderate turbulence? Moderate turbulence would be the inability for, let's say, if you're going to hold a drink in your hand that doesn't have a lid on it, it's probably going to splash out. It also is going to be moderate. It's going to be slight or erratic changes of attitude or altitude. Now, the other thing that most people don't realize is that a bank of 15 degrees, when it comes to general aviation, this is going to be roughly, if I can spell, roughly a standard rate turn. 15 degrees is roughly a standard rate turn, at least when it comes to general aviation. Keep in mind that a standard rate turn, you can calculate a standard rate turn, and a standard rate turn is based upon your airspeed. So for general aviation, most of us are probably in the slower speeds are probably going to be closer to like 5 to 8 degrees of bank to maintain a standard rate turn. When we're flying the Ember Air around and the flight levels at 30,000 feet, if we are asked to do a standard rate turn, it is closer to almost 30 degrees, a 30-degree bank to maintain a standard rate turn. All right, so we do not have a good consensus here. The correct answer, just so we know for everybody, is going to be B. It's 90 and 270 degrees, and we'll talk about why here. So ignore some of the things that it's telling you. It's giving you all of this excess information that you really don't need, right? So it's telling you on what headings will the magnetic compass read most accurately during a level 360-degree turn with a bank of approximately 15 degrees. So we know that that's a standard rate turn, and then we have to kind of think about where is there no turn error, right? And there is no turn error when we're going east or west, okay? So remember those acronyms that we talked about before. So we've got undershoot north, right? Then we have overshoot south. That's one, which is our UNOS. And then the other one that we have is basically ANDs, right? Which is accelerate. I'll just go ahead and put accelerate north and decelerate south, okay? So anytime that we are trying to fly directly north or south, we have to compensate by basically either undershooting or overshooting, depending on what we're trying to do, and that's that UNOS acronym that we talked about in class. Anytime that we are flying east or westbound directly, we have to worry about this, which is if we accelerate on an east or westbound heading, we would expect our magnetic compass to make a slight turn to the north. and if we were to decelerate, it would show a slight turn to the south. Now, in this case, this question did not say we're accelerating or decelerating. We are just making a standard rate turn 360 degrees. So in this case, the best answer that we have is when we're heading east or west, because we're not slowing down or speeding up, we should have the most accurate reading on the heading of 090 or 270. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Yep, unos and ands, that's what we're dealing with. But remember that ands, which is this one right here, accelerate north, decelerate south, it does not apply because we're not accelerating and decelerating in the turn. Okay? All right, great job, everyone. And let me just also preface, because we had 50% of the class with C, which is north and 180. That is incorrect because of this, right? This whole compass error right here with unos is going to be the most problematic. Sorry, can't talk today. When you're heading for a northbound or southbound heading. Okay. All right, 2 more questions and then we're going to wrap it up here. So this one is dealing with your attitude indicator. So what condition during taxi is an indication that an attitude indicator is unreliable? Is it A, the horizon bar tilts more than 5 degrees while making taxi turns? B, the horizon bar vibrates during warm-up? Or C, the horizon bar does not align itself with a miniature airplane after warm-up? A, B, or C? Give everyone another moment on that. All right, so we've got about 58% of the class with C, almost nobody on B, and 37% of the class with A. So correct answer here is actually A. It's the horizon bar tilts more than 5 degrees while making a taxi turn. Now, this one, which is C, the horizon bar does not align itself with the miniature airplane after warm-up. Remember that, you have the ability to center the dial while either in level flight or prior to departure, while you're doing your pre-flight, you have that ability to use that little round knob. And then what you can do is you can basically move that miniature airplane to line it up with the horizon. Now, also keep in mind that sometimes there is a warm-up period, because most of these are going to be gyroscopic instruments or vacuum-driven instruments. And remember, the vacuum has to basically spin that gyro between 10 to 20,000 RPMs per minute, and it might take more than 60 seconds to get fully up and running and spinning. So the correct answer here is that the horizon bar tilts more than 5 degrees while making a taxi turn. All right. All right, let's move on to one final question here. I don't know if we have any of our small unmanned aircraft folks in the house here or that have attended those classes, but I do have one question. It's the only question that I saw that was repeatedly missed, and has to do with weather minimums, and then we're going to be all done. The basic weather minimums for operating a small UAS up to 400 feet AGL limit are what? Is it A, 900-foot ceiling and 3 statute miles of visibility, B, 2,000-foot ceiling and 1 mile of visibility, or C, clear of clouds and 2 statute miles of visibility? All right, everyone is a little bit all over the place here. All right, so we've got about 42% of the class with the correct answer. Correct answer here is 900-foot ceiling and 3 statute miles visibility. So let's run through this here real quick. For those of you that are not familiar with the UAS, that's basically a remote drone operator's license. It's one of the courses that we actually offer here. It allows you to pilot a specific type of drone for commercial purposes, and that means you have another FAA license. It's called a remote pilot license. Now, the minimums for this is you need at least 3 statute miles of visibility and 500 feet below a cloud, 2,000 feet horizontally from a cloud. So let's talk about that here real quick. So if we have the ground layer, which is the surface, and we have our cloud right here, okay, what we know is that we can operate up to 400 feet AGL, okay? So that's step number 1. So I've got my little drone and I am operating right here, and I happen to be at 400 feet AGL. All right, everyone following along? So the other regulation that it states is that I need to be at least 500 feet below a cloud. So if I am 500 feet below a cloud, which is represented right there, 500 feet below, then all I'm going to do is add those two numbers up. 500 plus 400 is a 900-foot ceiling, okay, and 3 statute miles of visibility, which is the minimum that I need as stated here. So correct answer is A, okay? Everyone understand that? Ah, yep. It's easier sometimes when we draw it out and kind of show you guys step by step of how they're coming to it. All right, so with that, if you guys have any questions, course-related questions, or anything along those lines, I will stick around. Like I said, these are kind of bonus lessons, if you will, where we're going to try to go through the test questions that we see are commonly missed, or that we see a large percentage of the population kind of missing, okay? So with that, I appreciate everyone hanging out on this Sunday afternoon. I don't know if Sundays work better than Saturdays. If it does, we can potentially do these on Sundays instead of Saturdays at the same time. And then if you guys, everyone is free to go at this point, you're very welcome. But if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer those questions at this point, and we'll kind of hang out for a little bit, all right? All right, so Cezanne is asking about the rotation and turbulence. That one's actually fairly easy. So when we are rotating, we want to land after the aircraft has touched down or landed, and we want to take off before they took off. All right. Saturdays are better. Okay. Sundays are better. Everybody's going to have a million different opinions here. The recording, Alicia, will be online. It will be made available. I'll try to put it on the Facebook page again as well, and I'll also put it on the free online private pilot ground school. Marcus, I do not have the course materials and books available at the office. If you would like to pick up, let's say, a Rod Machado book, you can go to Western Cardinal. They are located on the field as well. So feel free to reach out to them. Just let them know I sent you, and Brody and the mom will take care of you there. Okay. Theron's asking, where do I find this information or the video? The video will be placed directly into the free private pilot ground school. I'll put a link to it in there, and I'll just create another little lesson, if you will, for it. Yep, that's a good way of putting it. We're trying to avoid, so when we're talking about wake turbulence, let's see here. When we're talking about wake turbulence and we have an airplane, so I'm gonna put an X of where the large airplane landed, okay? Our goal is to land after the point that they landed. So what we want to do is land after the point that they landed. Okay, so I'm going to do this, change the color just a little bit here. All right, so the airplane that just landed here, we do not want to land before them because of the fact that we could potentially experience wake turbulence. So in our smaller airplane, we want to touch down after the point that they touched down. And the reason why is that when they were coming in to land, they were creating all of this wake turbulence that we're basically trying to avoid. Now, on the flip of that, when they are taking off, they are creating, once again, all of this wake turbulence when they're departing the airport, and we don't want to go into that as well. So what we do as pilots is, this is where they rotated. We want to rotate and take off before the point that they did, so that way we can avoid it. All right? Does that make a little bit more sense? We'll see you tomorrow, Marcus. Have a great one. Not a problem, William. I will take a look at it. I could have, I could have misspoke when it came down to it. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, Marcus. James, how long do we have to wait for wake turbulence? So wake turbulence avoidance, it's generally going to be 2 to 3 minutes, and it depends on the aircraft that you're going to be following. The larger the aircraft, the more time that you want to give yourself. If you're taking off from an A380, I believe the separation limits are about 2.5 or 3 minutes. So that's something that you want to make sure that you can do. Okay. Nick, email me that question and I'll be happy to answer it for you privately. Okay. All right, great. I'm glad that makes sense, Cezanne. All right, so Ricky's asking, can we cover the kinds of equipment list that you're trying to find in a POH for a 172, or how it's different than an MEL? For the free private pilot class, we have not covered the differences between any of that. We're actually going to cover that on Monday. But just so you know, just real briefly, you have something called a KOEL, which is known as a kinds of equipment list, or you have the potential of an actual equipment list. All right. Now, an equipment list is going to be found in chapter 6 of your POH or AFM, and the kinds of equipment list is going to be found in chapter 2 of your POH and AFM. If it exists, not every airplane has an equipment list, and not every airplane is going to have a kinds of equipment list. So your airplane may not have either one. What you're referring to in an MEL is a minimum equipment list, which is generally found on large transport category aircraft. So Boeing's, our Embraer Air has one, Airbuses have one, and basically a minimum equipment list says, it's basically a booklet, if you will, and inside the booklet, it says everything in this booklet can be broken on the airplane and we could still fly. But we have to fix it within a specified period of time. So one thing that I usually like to kind of give as an analogy is, let's assume that the coffee pot on the 747 is broken, right? Can we probably fly with a coffee pot that's broken? The answer is yes, right? But we have to defer the maintenance and we have to fix it in a given period of time. And the MEL is basically the manufacturer and the FAA have agreed in terms of how long do we have to repair that piece of equipment. For the majority of them, it's between 3 to 120 days. And the reason why they have MELs is for the whole purpose of, if something breaks every single time, which it does on every commercial jet out there, we can't just stop and kick the passengers off and do something unless it's a critical piece of equipment. So that's what an MEL is, okay? Hopefully that explained that, Ricky. Afro, if you've got a friend that's looking to join the classes, I would highly suggest that, you know, give them the link for the website at checkride-prep.com. They can kind of play catch up, but I would encourage them to join the live classes as well. The federal aviation regulations that we're covering tomorrow does not necessarily build upon anything that we've done so far. So that's you know, that's that. All right, let's see. Laurel, in FAA testing supplement figure 74, area 6 shows class C vertical limits for Oakland, but I don't understand because the top altitude is the letter T. Okay, so let's talk about that one. That's actually a good question there. I'm going to share with you my screen because that's a good question. I'm just going to go to SkyVector. I'm not gonna do the exact same test question, but I will show you in San Francisco what that looks like. So let's go to the San Francisco TAC chart. And this is actually a common question. So give me just 1 second. Let me go ahead and share the screen here. All right, so what we have here is we have this right here is Oakland International Airport, and Oakland International Airport is just across the bay from San Francisco. Okay, so let me see if I can draw on the screen here for you guys and do it this way. Give me 1 second, so make it a little bit easier. So her question is that inside of the, let me move that. All right, so let's do two things here. Let's get rid of that. And let's go here. All right, so inside of Oakland International, what we have is we have airspace that has this symbology of T, okay? And the reason why it has a symbology of the T is it means that the airspace is from surface to the top or terminal. And it's because there's different layers. So Oakland International, which is Class C airspace, goes from surface to the top or the terminal area, and the Bravo sits right on top of it. So in this case, what we have is we've got Oakland, which goes from surface up to, but not including 2,100 feet, because it says that Bravo starts at 2,100. So it's surface to 2,099 feet, and then at 2,100 feet up to 10,000 feet, it is going to be Class Bravo. Now, it also says terminal because if we look at a different portion of it, here is the Bravo from 21 to 10,000. If I were to go up a little bit further, that terminal area is broken into a few different sections. So let me see if I can find it for you. Yeah, if we go further down on the map, we still have right here, it would be from surface to the terminal at the top, which would be Class Charlie, and at 1,500 feet, it becomes Class Bravo. Here, like we said before, it's from 1,500 feet to the top or terminal, which then becomes Class Bravo. So as you can see, if they put in each one of these, it would just be too much information, and they would not be able to basically get that much information on the same screen at the exact same time. Okay? Let's see here, move that guy over there, move it down. All right, so does that kind of clarify that question there? Perfect. All right, so Daryl's asking, how do you verify the quiz statistics or review it in order to see which questions were missed? So once again, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and log on to your account. So if I were to go to Checkride.com, we've only put the student login portion in basically in the section for the free private pilot course. We'll go ahead and do it for the rest of the classes as well. So let me just log in real quick, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Right here. All right, so let me share my screen with you again, and this is going to be, oops, wrong one there. The FAA test prep one. I think it's this one here. All right, so here I am. I'm logged into my account. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the online training courses here. When I click on the online training courses, make sure that you're using the free online private pilot ground school. Unless you pay for the premium, if you pay for the premium ground school, you can click at the bottom, which is the private pilot ground school. But we're going to show you right here that it's the free online private pilot ground school. When you do that, scroll down to where it says student profile, and I'm going to go ahead and click on student profile. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my free online private pilot ground school course. I'm going to go ahead and click on the triangle or the caret, if you will, and it will show me all of the different times I've attempted to take this test. And then what I can do is I'll click on statistics. It'll load it. And then as you can see here, it will tell me, did I have a correct answer or an incorrect answer? How long did it take? And how many points did I receive? Now, in order to view the question, what you're going to do is click View, and in this case, it will show you which one that, in this case, if the answer was correct, so it shows me that my little bubble, I selected lift, weight, thrust, and drag. Now, in the event that I got the answer incorrectly, so let's look at the next one, which statement relates to Bernoulli's principle? And what we have here is says an additional upward force is generated. So in this case, it's giving you the options of what you have or what you answer. Okay. Hopefully that helps answer that question. Let me kill this one real quick here. All right. What other questions do we have here? Is there a link for the I don't know what the 4Y day Q&A session is. Is that in the premium one? Is that what you're asking, Russ? I'm sorry. Have a good one, John. Appreciate it. MEL is multi-engine land. Gothic. That was my confusion. Gotcha. Sorry. Gotcha. Laugh out loud. You must be tired. Yeah, I'm getting tired. Mark is asking, do they have apps that help plan your flight? Absolutely. There's free apps out there on AOPA. You can go to 1-800-WXBrief.com. That's the FAA version. They have actually a great app that allows you to do it. There's a couple paid apps as well. The big companies out there are Garmin Pilot. If you have an Android, type iPad or whatever that version is, a device. If you actually have a physical iPad, the one that you're going to want is ForeFlight. And then the pricing on that usually starts at $99 a year. The nice thing with ForeFlight, I love ForeFlight. I use it as my logbook. I use it as my electronic flight bag. I can sign my student endorsements. So if a student walks away from a flight lesson and they forget to ask, or I forget to sign something, I can actually sign it digitally and it will go directly to their logbook. And it prints out the logbooks professionally. So I love all that stuff. Hey, Brendan, do me a favor, because it probably got lost in the mix and I want to get that to you right away. Brendan Saluk, let's see here. Can you just quickly private message me your email and I will get you your instrument test authorization? It only takes a minute. Usually for those that we have actually sent out every single test authorization for private pilot and instrument, and occasionally what ends up happening is we get emails back saying that it wasn't received, and they're generally going to junk mail for whatever reason. Just Brendan, please go ahead and just private message me your email, and I'll get it to you. Okay. All right. So for those, I'm echoing. I think we got the echo taken care of. Sorry about that, guys. Does the Aviator Unlimited course cover information required for the drone license? Joe, yes, it does. It absolutely does. And it actually includes the specific requirements and the specific content for the drone license. Laurel Terminal, okay. Okay, let's see. Jonathan Cook, sorry, David, I step away. I'm not sure if you answered this, but I was wondering, to fly in Class Bravo, who gives us the endorsement? Okay, so Jonathan's asking, who gives you your endorsement to fly inside of a Class Bravo? If you're a student pilot, you're going to need your instructor's permission and a specific endorsement from your instructor to fly in the Class Bravo. And they actually have to take you through the Class Bravo before they give you that endorsement. If you are a licensed pilot and you're done being a student, you don't need any endorsements. What will end up happening is that whoever controls that Class Bravo, whatever approach controller or departure control controls it, is going to say Cessna 1234, you are cleared into the Los Angeles Class Bravo, and that would be your clearance moving forward. Okay. Alfred is asking, what happens when a military overlaps a commercial airport? The airspaces are clearly defined. The airspace in some locations, such as I think it's like Gilroy, which is literally like an Air Force base, and then 100 feet away, it's another airport that's next to it. You know, they're very, very close, but once again, they are clearly defined. There's no airspace that actually is shared when it comes to that. There are some military or joint use airports that are run by the military, like Albuquerque is run by the military. It's a military controller in the tower, but everybody uses it for commercial purposes, including of course, the airlines. Okay. All right. If the audio is garbled, just go ahead and close it and then reopen it. What is the 31? I'm not sure what 31 means. All right, so Jerry is asking for, you know, I did this quick little tutorial when it came down to different colors and coatings. Basically, the simple way of knowing about it is that we've got a magenta, or we've got a, basically a magenta dash line, if you will. So each one of these represents something different. And then the other version of that is we have kind of a cyan, and the cyan, that's not really cyan, but a bluish color is going to be a solid blue. And then we've got one that's kind of a dash blue, if you will. Okay. So the one right here that's solid is going to be a Class Charlie airport. The one below it, that's the magenta dash line, is going to be a Class Echo, and that starts at the surface. The one on the right, which is that bluish color, if you will, is going to be a Class Delta airport. And the other dead giveaway for Class Delta is the fact that it will always have these little tiny brackets that look like this. See if I can draw this out real quick here. So inside of these brackets, it's going to have some type of number, and that number, let's just say it says 36 in it. That number represents the ceiling of that Class Delta airspace. And then the last one is for our Class Bravo airports, which is the solid blue, or that solid magenta. Okay. So that's what we mean by that kind of color coding system that I told everyone about on the 24th a couple days ago. All right, so KGGGG, let me look at that. So I'm going to go to skyvector.com, and someone's asking about K triple golf. Okay, so Let me clear this out real quick. All right, so this is for William. William's asking, what is the solid gray line that surrounds Kilo Golf Golf Golf? If we were to look at Kilo Golf Golf Golf, you'll see that there is this grayish area all the way around it. And this grayish area represents what we call a TERSA. And a TERSA is a Terminal Radar Service Advisory Area. And what it means is that for participating VFR and IFR aircraft, they provide radar separation services. Usually along the edges of a TERSA, somewhere, here it is right here. You see where it says long view TERSA at the very, very top of the screen here? This is long view TERSA. It will always tell you it's a TERSA. So a TERSA, remember, is a Terminal Radar Service Area, okay? Oh, you guys may have not even seen that, sorry. Let me show you that one more time. Okay, so show it to you one more time, apologize. Okay, so here's the TERSA. The TERSA is surrounding Triple Gulf, which is East Texas Regional Airport, which is at the center of the screen there. These brown, not brown lines, but these grayish lines represent that it's a TERSA. And then we know it's a TERSA because right here it says Longview TERSA, and that's the Terminal Radar Service Advisory Area. Okay. All right. Let's see what other questions we have. Can you tell me how to get heading from the altimeter on this question? William, that question was worded incorrectly. I will take a look at that because there is no way to get a heading, and it's figure 82. So I'll take a look at that for you. Daryl, I will take a look at that. It should be showing you the correct answer. Nate, I am, like I said with Daryl, everyone's asking which is the correct answer and which is not the correct answer. When you take the exam, after you take the exam, right afterwards, it should tell you the all of the test question, the 3 potential answers, and then beneath it, it should give you the exact answer. Now, unless you take a screenshot of it or print it at that given moment, it doesn't save it indefinitely, okay? All right, we got the Triple G. Bren's, okay, thank you. I will email you that in about 10 minutes. Okay, sir? Apologize about that. And the wings credits, yep. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Russ, I'm not sure what y//day means. I'm not entirely sure what that means. All of our, we did not have a Saturday Q&A yesterday. It was moved to today. This is being recorded and we'll upload it once we're done. Okay. All right, so Mark, which question did you get confused on? Just so I know here. Got it. Okay, so Laurel, if they're giving you an altimeter setting, we have not gone over this yet because it's in the Federal Aviation Regulations, so that's the reason why I have to double check the question. You have to be, anytime that we're above 3,000 feet but below 18,000 feet, we are required to be on a given altitude, and those altitudes are dependent upon our heading. So what we usually like to say is that if you're flying east, unfortunately, hate to say this, the people in the east are odd, okay? So what that means is that you need to fly an odd altitude plus 500 feet if you're flying on a magnetic heading between 0 and 179. If you're flying on a magnetic heading between 180 and 360, you need to be on an even plus 500 heading. So that would be 25, evens are 2,500, 4,500, 6,500. So that may be how the question is being referred to, but I'd have to go look that up, okay? Does anyone know which question number that is? You're welcome, Joe. Yep. It's the joke that we like to say for the West Coasters, are that the East Coast folks are odd. It's a very easy way to remember it. All right, so it's quiz 2, question 64, okay? Yep, I'll take a look right now. See if we can solve this problem. Any other questions that you may have? So now, so we're odd now. Yep. The aircraft will be turned less than 90 degrees depending on where the windward side is. Ewan, if you're taking the IGI, there is no endorsement that's required to take the IGI. And I'm just pulling up quiz number 2 to look at that question number 64. So bear with me for just a moment. All right, so question number 64 states that altimeter 3 is indicating a VFR cruising altitude for which direction? So let's go ahead and look at what the altimeter is showing. And this is referring to figure 82. So let me go ahead and pull this up. So what we need to do first is we're going to first look at the altimeter setting itself and whatever altitude it is. And it's asking me to look at figure 82. So figure 82 altimeter number 3. All right, so altimeter number 3 is stating that you are at 9,500 feet. So let's look at this question here. If you're at 9,500 feet, what the question is asking specifically is, it says, based upon that altimeter, altimeter 3 is indicating a VFR cruising altitude for which direction? So the direction that we want to keep in mind is basically from 0 to 179 degrees. We need to be at an odd altitude plus 500 feet, okay? And then anything from 180 degrees to roughly 359-ish, then you need to be at an even plus 500 feet, okay? So we know that this is odd. This is an odd altitude here. So because this is an odd altitude, it's going to have to be something between 0 and 179. And keep in mind that all of these, it's also giving you a trick question, all are magnetic, okay? So all are magnetic. So in this case, your options are 180 to 359 degrees magnetic. That's not going to work because that's even plus 500. Your other one that it's giving you is 179 degrees true. That's not going to work either because these are magnetic. And your best option is number 3, which is 080 degrees magnetic. 080 falls in line with the first one. So the correct answer here is C. Okay. Hopefully everyone understands that. All right. What other questions do we have here? All right, so getting back to your question on the IGI, the IGI EWIN is the instrument ground instructor written. There is no endorsement required to take it, but you are also required to take the FOI, which is the fundamentals of instruction. Once you take the FOI and the IGI, you basically take those documents and you fill out an IACRA form. You have to take them down, have an FAA safety inspector review them, and then they're going to give you a temporary certificate for your instrument ground instructor. You can also do that with an AGI, which is an advanced ground instructor as well. All right, so Russ is saying, I understand how you can get disoriented flying through the clouds without a point of reference. However, if you were in a situation that without proper instruments for IFR flight, could you not ascend or descend below the structure, the cloud structure, by focusing on the attitude indicator until you clear the cloud, or are there other factors? So once again, it takes a lot of practice. You, as a private pilot, you're only getting 3 hours of practice under the hood. As an instrument rated pilot, you're getting practice that is more along the lines of 40 hours. There's also other factors that take place into it. The reason why we've got all those other instruments is that it allows us to cross-check and make sure that the airplane is doing what we want it to do. The attitude indicator is our primary instrument when it comes down to determining the relative attitude of the airplane. But once again, you don't know how high those clouds go, and you don't know how low those clouds go. If you go low enough, you could potentially hit terrain, and there are some cases where I've flown in small GA airplanes, and we have taken off, and we were in the IFR conditions at 300 feet, and I remember we flew all the way out to Lancaster at 12,000, and we didn't even pop out until we were past Lancaster, almost an hour into it. So there's a lot of other factors. The other thing that you also have to kind of take into account is when you are in the clouds itself, if you take your eyes off that instrument for even a second, that's usually where problems start to happen, and that's where you start to lose control of the airplane. Okay. All right, let's see here. Swathi is asking, loading an airplane to the most aft CG will cause the airplane to be what? So if we have an aircraft with a rearward CG, anytime that we have an aircraft that is still within CG, but basically, if this is the front of the plane where the tip of the pen is, and this is the back of the plane, if we put all the weight in the back of the plane, it is less stable along the longitudinal axis, the long axis. It allows for a faster ground speed, but you are more likely to have issues in the event that you get into a stall or spin, because it could become irrecoverable. The reason why I mean that is that if I put all the weight in the back, that airplane would naturally sit in that position, right? So in order to counter that upward nose position, I have to push that yoke forward, which means when I'm pushing that yoke forward, now instead of going like that, now I'm flying straight and level. Now, in the event that I stalled the airplane and I got into a spin, remember, the very first thing that we do when we stall is we have to push the nose of that airplane forward to break the stall. And if we were to get into a spin, we have to push the nose of that airplane forward as well. Now, if I'm exercising the full authority of my elevator already, meaning that it's already to the firewall, I have the potential of not being able to escape or get out of that stall and or spin. Okay. All right. Thanks. Yep. All right, Mark, the latest test question, if you want to read something on, Mark, do you have the do you have the Rod Machado book by chance? Let me see here. All right, Mark is asking, you know, what would I read? Here's the regulation, Mark. It's 91-159. It's from Gleam. You can also look it up as well. But all it is that's telling you the VFR cruising altitudes. So you can briefly look that up, and that will give you some additional information on answering that type of question. Okay. If anyone here has the Rod Machado book, it doesn't matter which edition it is. Sorry, my office is a little bit of a mess here. It's going to be in Chapter 6 under Federal Aviation Regulations, and it's under VFR cruising altitude. If you are the super pilot and you happen to have a FAR aim, which is not in my office at the moment, you can look up the regulation. It's 91-159. And that will tell you about VFR cruising altitudes. But once again, just wait literally about 24 hours. We're going to be talking about this stuff tomorrow. Okay. Mark, Rod's book, 2nd edition, will work just great. I'm still using it. He's been kind enough to actually send me a 3rd edition, which is great. But you know, it's not going to make a huge difference. All right, perfect, Rich. I appreciate it. Have a great one. All right, does anyone else have any more questions? As I said, we're going to do this every single week. These classes are in addition to the standard Monday, Wednesday, and Friday classes. I just want to make sure, as I said, my goal as an instructor is to make sure that everyone here not only has a good time, but is understanding the material. And in addition to that, we just want to make sure that, you know, you guys all pass this course. That is my ultimate goal. I want you guys to be safe, proficient pilots at the end of the day. And, you know, once this course is done, I want to hear the good news and see the photos of, you know, I want to see that you passed your tests. And that's my whole goal here. Okay. All right, you're very welcome, Colleen. Pete, it tells you on his webpage what the changes are to add for the 2nd edition. Absolutely. The other thing, I did talk to Rod Machado the other day. I mean, if you're interested in purchasing the physical book, he does have the physical books available. Although he did recommend to me to plug his digital version just because it is instantaneous. And if you do get his digital version of his book, it includes free updates. And I believe he said it was for a year. Okay. Have a great one, Mark. Thanks, Daryl. I will take a look at that. So Jerry's asking, how do you know if Class G is under Class E? Class G is always going to be under Class E. Class G, think of it as a thin layer that covers the surface of the Earth, unless there's some type of airspace that takes over for it. Okay. You're very, very welcome, Mark. Keep retaking the test, Mark. If anyone here, like Mark, you know, didn't really get the grade that you wanted on the quiz, don't be discouraged. Just retake the test. Every time that you retake the test, you're actually going to start to see the questions over. And remember that, you know, the test questions in itself, it's just one thing that you're going to have to pass. You will never, ever see these test questions again once you pass your private pilot written. Okay. All right. And then Jonathan, you're asking a question. Did a discovery flight and the guy kept calling out shelves? Is he referring to the class of airspace? Probably what he's referring to is that, hey, we can't fly over there because class Bravo goes down to a certain shelf, or this is where that airspace begins. So what I want you to do is turn around because we can't go in there. That's probably what he was referring to, he or she was referring to. What we mean by shelves is, remember that kind of that upside down wedding cake, if you will. That's what we call a shelf. That's all it is. if you were to look at any of the pictures that we talked about, especially when it came down to airspace or anything along those lines, those are all shelves. So right here, this is class Bravo in Rod's book. So each one of these is a shelf, and each shelf has a specific altitude that maybe the instructor was trying to stay out of. Same thing with this. This is Santa Barbara's class Charlie Airport. This could also be considered a shelf because it looks just like this. It's just a smaller version of that. Okay. All right. Let's see. You're very welcome. Welcome. All right. So class Echo, Jerry, can go down to the surface. Remember, it can go down to the surface, and we know if it goes down to the surface by a magenta dash line surrounding whatever that area is. Okay. Magenta dash line. What I recommend, Jerry, for you is go ahead and get an FAA sectional chart and look on the actual legend. And what I want you to do, the best way to learn this is to take out a sectional chart or go on to skyvector.com and just compare and contrast. Look at what the legend has, see what you can identify, and go back and forth, okay? Class Echo can go down to the surface. It usually does so to protect instrument approaches. We have one here that goes down to the surface just outside of Camarillo as well. Jack is asking, do we need an 80% on each test or just on the final? Just on the final. Jonathan, yes, he kept telling me to bank right to stay away from it. Yep, so whatever it was, whatever airspace it happened to be, that was something that they just did not want you to fly into. We don't know specifically what it is. Here, I'll do this for Jerry just so he can see this a little bit better. We go to Camarillo real quick here and go to the TAC chart. All right. All right, Jerry, this one is for you. Just so I can share this with you. This is on SkyVector at our local airport. So as you can see here, what you're going to have is we have Camarillo Airport, which is a class Delta, and it goes up to 2,000 feet, and that's represented by the 20 that's in that box. To the right of all of that, you're going to see this magenta dash line that is a box. So that magenta dash line is a box that basically kind of surrounds both of these airports directly to the east. And the reason why it does it and what that means is that means that class Echo, if I were standing where this little parachute thing was right here, that means that from the surface all the way up, but not including 18,000 feet, is class Echo airspace. Okay, so that's what that means. If I was standing where the orchards are, where this little tiny square is, that's the same thing. It's class Echo at the surface. If I'm standing where the flag is, which is representative of the Conejo grade, then that's also class Echo. So like I said, what I recommend you do is pull out a map, and you can do it on SkyVector, just like what I'm doing right now. Go to the legend. They will always have a legend that looks just like this, and go through each one. So when I look at this, I'm gonna see if I can find a hard surface runway that's 1,500 feet or greater. I'm going to see if I can find an abandoned runway. I'm going to see, here's your airspace information, right? So we're talking about the different types. Anytime that we see that magenta dash line, here's the class Echo, which starts at the surface. So what you need to do, and what I recommend, is just go back and forth, look at the map and look at the legend. And then from that point, once you have a good understanding of how to identify each different type, then what I want you to do is to tell me what are the licensing requirements to get in and out, meaning do I need a pilot's license, which you basically need a student pilot license or better for all airspace except for class Bravo. What are the equipment requirements? The equipment requirements are either ADS-B transponder or a radio, right? And then how do I communicate? Is it going to be two-way radio communication, or is it going to be basically a clearance? Also, use the AOPA study flashcard guides that I put in that lesson. And if you do it step by step, it will really, really help you out. Okay? Have a good one, Jonathan. All right. With that, any other questions before we call it a night here? I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. I know it's dinner time and it's getting late. There are a total of 9 more one-on-one 1-hour sessions with me. If you have any questions, just like what we're doing now, those will all be individualized and tailored to you, whether you're looking for that aviation career plan. I've helped plenty of students kind of guide them through the process of, regional airline interviews, kind of planning out, figuring out the fastest way to get from point A to point B, questions in terms of their private pilot exam, getting people prepped for instrument, basically every single type of exam out there. But other than that, Jerry, thanks again. I appreciate it. Appreciate your patience. William, I appreciate correcting me on that test question back there that related to, I think I gave you some incorrect information the other day. But other than that, everyone, I hope you guys have a great Sunday evening. I will see everyone here tomorrow, and we'll be talking about federal aviation regulations. So with that, thanks again, everyone. I hope you guys stick with it, and we'll see you later. Take care.